Hey everyone, it's Heather with Tropica Exotica, and today I'm going to continue the conversation we started in a series of videos where I'm talking about who are we. So first I just want to start off with saying I apologize, it's been a while since I've made a video. I originally was planning on doing these videos once a week, but I had a couple of things happen the last few months. I had some technical difficulties with my camera, and then I went on a 2-week vacation to Peru and Bolivia. So I was pretty busy trying to get ready for that trip and then being gone and just trying to catch up on everything. So I apologize. So I'm going to try to get back into a regular posting schedule going forward. But just to talk a little bit about my trip to Peru and Bolivia. One of the main things that we went to go visit was Machu Picchu. If you haven't been there, I'd really recommend making that trip. That's been my probably #1 bucket list place to travel, and I finally got a chance to go, and I was really excited about it. It's an amazing site. We also got to go see probably about 20 other different sites out there, a lot of the megalithic stone structures. We went to Wiracocha, Coricancha, Sacsayhuaman, Amaru Muru, which is supposed to be an interdimensional portal. We also went to Bolivia, hung out for a little bit in Lake Titicaca, exploring the islands there. The Sun Island, the Moon Island, Uros floating islands. We also went to go see Tiahuanaco and Pumapunka. And Pumapunka is, according to David Wilcock, supposed to be an ancient extraterrestrial kind of UN type place. So it was really fascinating to go out to these sites. You can really see the difference between the Incan civilization and then some of these massive stone structures that, you know, nobody can really understand how they were able to move these huge megalithic stones around. And just some of the precision cuts, especially in Pumapunka, where we saw pieces of granite that would have extremely precision carved out lines in granite, and it was just really super smooth. Anyway, those sites were really incredible. And one thing I just want to say about some of these sites, if you go to some of these sacred sites, I think one of the reasons that we go to these and we're drawn to them is because we receive activations when we go. Well, that's one thing I'm trying to kind of understand and learn more about. But I know in particular when I went to Bimini, which is supposedly the site of Atlantis, I had a lot of different experiences as I got close there, and I will do a video on that one eventually, just to talk about some of the experiences I've had. But wanted to just share briefly about what's been going on, and I'm really excited to kind of integrate those energies and process and understand, you know, better a lot about what happened when we were there. I didn't have any, you know, super far out experiences like I did in Bimini, but I still need to kind of go through and kind of analyze that trip. So I'm still just trying to recover from it because we were going so fast. It was just a whirlwind trip, so we packed a lot in a couple of weeks. So I'll go ahead and continue on about the topic today. So to continue on this conversation about who we are, one of the things that, you know, as you start your awakening process, this concept and idea of who you are will end up changing. And so that's a really big aspect of the spiritual awakening process. We talked about before the concept of who you are as an infinite soul coming from source and a divine creator being. And so the next thing we want to talk about is our galactic heritage. So when we come to Earth, and I've mentioned this before, that we basically have this veil of amnesia. And the reason why we have this veil of amnesia is because we came here for a mission, and this earth is really difficult. And, you know, we want to go in and have this experience as a human. But the thing is that when we agreed to do that, we agreed before we came in that we would have a blueprint and certain trigger points in our lives so that we would begin to wake up and remember who we are. So a lot of us, you know, some people were awake more generally, I would say, as a generation. Some of us decided to have those trigger points a little bit later on in life. And so one of the things that when we talk about why this happens, why were we as galactic beings, why did we come here? So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of the concepts that I've heard over the years, and it's been a while since I've kind of thought through this. I think it was probably 5 years ago when I started devouring all the books and videos trying to understand, you know, what is this all about. But a couple of the concepts that I've heard about why we came in as galactic souls is that in the 40s, if you recall, we started experimenting with nuclear weapons. And so if you also remember, that was when the famous Roswell crash happened, and you know, it was announced that there was a UFO crash, and then all of a sudden they changed that story to it was a weather balloon. But I think what was happening was, you know, the impacts of the nuclear powers and weapons can have huge impacts, you know, not only for Earth, but for other galaxies and planets. So I think there was an emphasis from the galactic beings, like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on down here? They went to go check it out. And I think that, you know, the government kind of wanted to cover that up because from what I recall, I think I remember hearing David Wilcock say about that same time they put out I believe it was a radio story about basically that the aliens have invaded because they kind of wanted to test to see how people would manage, and they made it act like it was real, the aliens were invading, and everybody freaked out. So I think at that time the government said, okay, we're not going to let everybody know that there's aliens out there. But when it comes to another concept I've heard is, I think that the humans on Earth have been under a control system. They have been manipulated, and I think there was a collective call that was put out. And that information I picked up, I think, from Magenta Pixie, and the other I think I read more about from Dolores Cannon. And so this collective call went out because everybody was suffering. They couldn't feel like they could make any changes or differences, and they were, you know, basically under these control systems. And so what happened was this collective call went out, and all of these beings from different galactic races responded to that call to volunteer to come down to the Earth. So part of this concept that you can read more about if you're interested is in a book by Dolores Cannon called, I believe it's The 3 Waves of Volunteers. And so these souls, which is us, agreed to come down to the Earth, and that was a way of us incarnating as human beings, not breaking the law of non-interference, I believe, is the one. I think people have talked about it being under Star Trek, but I've never watched Star Trek. But basically, you can't interfere. And so rather than the beings coming here and changing up everything, which would have broken a law, a universal law of non-interference, we agreed as souls to incarnate into human bodies. And so that was kind of the workaround in order to help the planet Earth. So the different galactic races that we incarnated from were the Lyran, Arcturian, Andromedan, Sirian, and Pleiadian. Now there's a whole bunch of other different ones, but those are kind of the main ones that you'll hear people talk about. And those galactic races although they're all specific, we as multidimensional beings have incarnated many times, hundreds of thousands of times, and so we can't say specifically, oh, I came from this race, oh, I came from that race. You know, we've probably been in few of those different races. But what you'll find is people will talk about predominant energies. And so a lot of us, even though we agreed to come here to the earth, we're not necessarily going to remember all of our past lives because that would be very distracting. But what a lot of us do is we will go to psychics, and psychics will do readings and tell us what they read, what they can tell, and what the predominant energy that we've either incarnated in multiple times or that we're bringing to this lifetime. And so, for instance, I've been told that I'm Lyran, Hyadian Lyran actually, and then also, the Hyadian Lyrans look like the characters that you see in the movie Avatar, is what I've been told. And then I've also been told that I'm bringing in Lemurian energies. Lemurian energies, in case you don't know, there was Atlantis and Lemuria, which were two civilizations that, you know, people don't really know about. We've heard some about Atlantis. Lemuria is a little bit more nebulous as far as information is available. And so I've been told that those are kind of the predominant energies, as well as also have a lot of Pleiadian lifetimes. And so if you're interested in learning more about your own galactic heritage, I would recommend going to see and do a reading with Pamela Aralyn. That's Aralyn. So why do we need to learn about our galactic heritage? So when it comes to defining ourselves as, you know, who are we? We are a part of a bigger galactic community. And so it's important because we need to understand that we are not just of this earth. Although we have an ancestral lineage, we have a galactic family as well. And so one of the things that you'll notice when you go through the spiritual awakening process is that you start to become connected and resonate with other people that are actually part of your soul family. And so that's the people that you meet, the friends here on earth. You start to align yourselves with others that are like you. And so I think that, you know, having that connection to others helps you understand, you know, that you resonate and you're similar to other people, and so that really helps you during the spiritual awakening process because it can be difficult. And so, you know, as you go through this process, you'll understand that you are you probably had many lifetimes with some of these people that you end up being friends with during the spiritual awakening process. And so that's your soul family, also known as your tribe. And the cool thing about it is that when you meet other soul family type members, there's just an ease, you just get along with them. You can even sit together and not say anything. It's just you just have this comfortable feeling. And I think that that's been something that really helps, because especially if you've been like a lot of us, you kind of felt like, I don't know why I'm here, what is the purpose? And so once you're around other like-minded people, you really start to feel a sense of comfort, and you kind of relax that, you know, okay, you know, we're all in this together. So I think it's really important to try to find your other tribe members. And then the other thing that I would say is it's important because you understand that you have support. So although we might not be on a day-to-day basis interacting with these beings because they're in different dimensions, but the point is that you're being supported. So you have a whole galactic family out there that is supporting you in this process. And I guess one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about lately is, you know, what is next? I think a lot of the people in the spiritual community right now are focused on disclosure and then also on the event, which I'm not going to talk about because I've heard so many different stories and I really don't know what the event is. And so I'm just going to continue living my day-to-day life and continuing to, you know, grow and evolve, and I'm not going to focus on that aspect. But I think that the thing that I've been wondering about lately is, you know, we're all focused on, okay, you know, the government has to let everybody know that we have these connections, you know, but I guess my thoughts are, well, what is next? So once we have this, okay, we agree that there's aliens out there, but in actuality, we're the aliens as well. But, you know, it's like, what's going to happen going forward? Are we going to have interactions with these different races? So what does that world look like? So that's something that I've been kind of starting to throw about in my mind that I haven't really thought about before that, because I think, like I said, most of us are like, when's it coming? When are we going to hear about, you know, these connections that we have? And one thing that you'll notice, if you haven't already noticed, is I believe it was David Wilcock that I first heard this talk about this kind of like drip drip, where information is put out there into the environment, so that people become aware, but it's kind of like, you know, you hear a little bit at a time so that you can get used to the concept. And so if you haven't noticed, it seems like every time I turn around there's another article that's being put out where NASA is talking about, you know, a possible planet that could be habitable, and so that's part of this process that you'll hear about. So that's trying to get everybody who is not yet aware that we have these connections to make them more aware, so that, you know, over time you're like, yeah, there's a planet out there, there could be beings out there, you know. And so over time that information will, you know, become more assimilated and we'll be able to accept it. So that's part of this process that we're in right now. So anyway, so that concludes the video today. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who subscribed. I really appreciate you joining me, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I really appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye.